So your iPad can really be one of your most powerful tools or your biggest distraction depending on how you use it. The iPad is capable of so much more than just watching YouTube or Netflix, but most people don't unlock its full potential because they're not using the right apps. These are some of my favorite iPad apps for productivity, creativity, organization, and that I think actually improve the quality of my life. Before we dive into it, I'd appreciate it if you click subscribe if you haven't already. We recently crossed 50,000 subscribers, which is pretty insane to think about. I think we're coming up on about 2 years since I started this channel. We're at 999 subscribers, which is wild. It's been a long journey, but also we're just getting started. Thank you all for supporting, watching, commenting, and yeah, click subscribe if you haven't already. I already said that, but back to the video. So these days, if you go into the App Store, you'll see a bunch of fancy looking apps that are super well designed, beautiful looking, that seem like they're gonna solve all your life's problems, and they even say free next to them, but when you download them, it's probably some sort of subscription model. A few of these apps are definitely great apps that are probably worth it. Some of them are good. Most of them are probably unnecessary and not really worth paying for. I've definitely found that most of the apps that I regularly use and actually provide a real benefit to my life are completely free. I'm sorry, app developers, they might hate me for saying this, but I think the vast majority of the fancy looking paid apps with subscriptions and all these crazy features are not really needed, and in some cases can be more of a distraction than a benefit to your life. I know this because I've tried a lot of these apps myself, and most of the time I don't end up using them enough to make it worth paying for, or they don't really benefit my life any more than the free equivalent of the app would, so it's also not really worth paying for. So apart from a select few that I genuinely think are worth the investment, the vast majority of apps that I ever recommend to people are completely free. I want to start off with some task managers. There's basically two that I usually recommend to people. The first one is Things 3, and I know I just went on a little rant about paid apps, free apps. Things is actually a paid app, but it is probably one of the single best third-party apps that I've ever used. It's just beautifully designed. The nice thing is it's not a subscription model, so you just pay like, I think it's maybe $10 once, and then you own the app forever. And it just, once you open it up and start messing around with it, you'll just notice how nice it is compared to other apps. It's just so smooth. It's like on the level of Apple apps. In fact, I think it's a lot smoother and more intuitive than many of Apple's apps, and it's just a great task manager. I've talked about it before in some of my older videos, not so much recently, but it's just got all the features you need, and it also has some really good desktop and iPhone apps that pair and sync really well with it, so would definitely recommend this. It's just so clean, like the design of everything is so well thought out. You don't have to click around too much to do different actions and create to-dos, add tags, flags, move them around. Everything is just so intuitive. I won't go, this is not going to be a whole things tutorial, but definitely if you're looking for a task manager and you want something that's super minimal, clean, aesthetic. If I had to pick one non-Apple app, so like a third-party app to recommend to people that I think is just one of the best apps made, it would definitely be Things 3. Next up, if you're looking for a completely free task manager, I would just recommend Apple Reminders. It's gotten really good over the years. They've added all these new features. In the past, it used to be kind of missing some of the more fundamental features that other task manager apps have had, like Things or Todoist or TickTick, but it's gotten really good and it's completely free, which is really nice. It syncs really well between your Apple devices. They recently added a feature where it kind of integrates with Apple Calendar. So if you schedule a reminder like paying rent or something, it would show up on the relevant date in your Apple Calendar, and you can check it off from there. You can add reminders within the calendar. I've talked about it in some other videos on my channel. But yeah, it's nice, simple. It's not quite as smooth, I would say, as Things 3. Like you kind of have to click around a little bit more to do some of the same actions. Like Things is really nice. I'll go back to it real quick. Let's say you have a bunch of tasks. You can very quickly just swipe over and then select a bunch of them at once, and you can move it around just like this. Whereas in Apple Reminders, you can't really do that. You can have these different options here if you swipe, But to select multiple ones, you kind of have to go to like the three dots, select reminders. Maybe I'm stupid and there's like an easier way to do this, but this is all I've found. And then you can kind of move it around to different lists if you want. So I wish they would just kind of fix that and add like something similar to things. But besides that, I think it's great. I'll do a full in-depth video guide on Apple reminders sometime soon if you're interested in that, but it's got lots of good features in here. As you can see, you can have sections, you can make columns, so you have kind of like the what's called the Kanban board workflow if you're into that stuff. You can share lists with people. So I share some grocery lists and stuff with my girlfriend or family, and that makes it very easy to go shopping and do anything that involves shared reminders or tasks. Next up, if you're looking for a good calendar app, I've tried pretty much all the main ones out there. And if you've been watching this channel, you know that I prefer to just use the simple Apple Calendar. It's really got everything that you need. And again, it's completely free. It syncs better than any other calendar app between devices just because it's, you know, built into the Apple ecosystem. I've talked about it in depth in other videos, which I'll link below, so I won't go into too much detail here. But one thing to note is if you do use Google Calendar, which I know a lot of people do, especially for meetings with other people because it works quite well for that. A lot of people use Gmail. You can actually link your Google account to your Apple Calendar so they all show up in Apple Calendar. All your shared meetings, any sort of auto events that Gmail creates will show up in Apple, so you can kind of use the Apple Calendar interface while still having those Google Calendar events, so you don't have to worry about kind of migrating everything. But yeah, we definitely recommend Apple Calendar if you're looking for a calendar app. All right, next up we have Notion, another classic app, and I personally really only use this for managing this YouTube channel. It's really the only case where I've found that, you know, dealing with all the complexities of Notion is actually worth it. For everything else, like managing your tasks, taking quick notes, I found that it's just kind of overkill, kind of clunky and slow. But specifically for planning out these YouTube videos, I have found it to be very useful, so I keep coming back to it for that. So you can see like I have my little content calendar plan for upcoming videos. I'll make this little Kanban board workflow type of thing. You can see I have the plan. Just, oh, my screen just turned red because this is my shortcut automation thing that I have for nighttime where it turns red so it doesn't mess up my sleep, because I'm recording this video a little bit late, so I can just turn that off. You can see my notes for this video I have here. And yeah, it's nice because I do like having all my YouTube stuff just in this one place, not spread across different things. And I know that when I come into Notion, I'm using it to be focused and productive on my YouTube channel, not for anything else. There's no distractions. And it's kind of nice to have that single use case app in some cases. Now, I don't really like using Notion on my iPhone. It's kind of clunky. The screen's too small. There's no offline mode. It's just slow compared to something like Apple Notes. And anytime I'm using some app like that on my phone, it's usually because I'm on the go and I want to be quick, and Notion is just not very quick. But the iPad app is quite good. It functions very similarly to the desktop app, so I do use it quite often on my iPad. Now, I do kind of want to use Notion Calendar because I know it can sync with these types of database calendars within Notion, and I think that could be pretty useful for me since I have these YouTube videos that I'm planning out and if I need to move the dates around and stuff. But there's no iPad app, which is unfortunate. Hopefully the Notion team is working on that soon. But yeah, I like to plan out things on my iPad and there's no iPad app, so I'll stick to Apple Calendar for now. Now, another classic app that I love using on my iPad is, of course, Apple Notes. I won't go too in depth here because I have a dedicated video on my channel for Apple Notes, but it's really just the best note-taking app, to be honest. Again, obviously completely free, syncs well offline, tons of great features while still being smooth and minimal. I use Apple Notes for all sorts of stuff, just quickly capturing ideas, notes on books, checklists, meeting notes, travel plans, scanning documents. Now, one use case I've really enjoyed lately with Apple Notes is actually taking some handwritten notes. So you can see here, I just wrote out a simple checklist for today. And there's something about writing by hand that just feels more natural, obviously, but also I think makes me at least take it more seriously, what I've kind of planned for myself. Whereas when I plan things in a digital app or task manager, it's just so easy to kind of move things to the next day or just, it doesn't feel as real. So I usually find that when I write out by hand the things I'm going to do for that day, I'm way more likely to actually do them. Now, of course, there's some downsides of going the paper route as opposed to digital notes and task managers. The obvious one being organizations. It's very easy to lose the paper or notebook that you wrote things on, whereas digital notes obviously get saved in the cloud and stuff. So I found that doing these handwritten notes on my iPad is kind of like the best of both worlds. You still get that natural handwriting feel that you would on paper, but you also get the organizational and syncing benefits of the digital world. And also, Apple recently added this handwriting correction feature. So my handwriting is not that good, but I'll show you real quick. So let's say I write something on my iPad now, kind of sloppy like I normally would. Apple will actually correct the handwriting to make it look a little neater while still maintaining kind of the natural feel of your personal handwriting. It's pretty cool, I won't lie. But for the longest time, I never really wrote on my iPad because it just felt too slippery and not really natural like pen and paper. And it was kind of a shame because I spent like $100 on this fancy Apple Pencil and was just sitting in the box or on the charger. But that all changed when I started using Paperlike. Paperlike is a screen protector that transforms your iPad into a more natural writing and drawing experience. It's got this nanodots technology that gives just the right amount of resistance to your Apple Pencil, which kind of mimics the feel of paper without sacrificing on screen clarity. Whether I'm taking notes, writing out my plan for the day, journaling, or visualizing things in free form, Paperlike makes the process feel smooth and precise. It's honestly made me enjoy writing and planning out things on my iPad way more, and we all know that when we enjoy the tools that we're using, we're way more likely to stay consistent. Plus, Paperlike reduces glare and smudges, so your screen still looks crisp while giving you that tactile feedback that you'd expect from pen and paper. If you're ready to make the most of your iPad, check out Paperlike using the link in the description. They even offer a 100-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it out for yourself completely risk-free. Big thanks to Paperlike for sponsoring this video. All right, now let's get into some apps that I use for learning. The first one is Instapaper, and this is definitely my favorite read later app that I've used. I've tried a few different ones like Reader from Readwise and Pocket, and I just like the minimalist interface of Instapaper, and it's also completely free, which is always a plus. But this basically helps me consume content with intention. So basically, if I'm on my computer, phone, iPad, anywhere, and I see something, a video, article, podcast, anything that looks interesting to me, I'll usually not watch it in that moment. I'll save it to Instapaper, and it comes into this nice database here. And then later, when I'm in some sort of dedicated time for consuming content or learning, I can go through and with intention click a video that I want to watch or learn about, rather than being subject to the YouTube algorithm or whatever is just kind of thrown in my face. And the reason I like Instapaper over other apps is because if I click on a video, it shows the video embedded nicely in the app, just like this. And so I don't have to go back to YouTube and watch this video. Shout out to Tatsuki. I can watch it here. You can also take notes, add tags, favorite things, folders, all that good stuff. And it's not just for videos. It's actually primarily meant for articles and things like that. But I like to use it for watching videos later because I enjoy watching videos and podcasts and things. Next up, quickly, we have Arc Browser. This is just the browser app that I've been using on my phone and computer. It's, again, similar to other apps that I like to use in the sense that it's smooth, minimal, very quick to search for things. It's got nice AI features, so you can do this browse for me thing where it'll basically search through Google, look for all the results, and compile things into a nice AI generated summary. Lots of great features in here, and especially on the desktop version as well. So I definitely recommend it as a browser. All right, next up, we've got some AI apps. ChatGPT, of course. I use this quite often for just asking it all sorts of random things. My sister jokes that ChatGPT is like my best friend because I ask it probably way too many personal questions. You can see, like, I was today asking it how many grams of this raw food brand to feed my 3-month-old kitten, and it gave me a nice answer. I asked it to convert it to ounces. So it's just like random stuff like this that it's really helpful for. It's kind of like how you would use Google back in the day, but now Google just kind of sucks and it gives you a bunch of crazy pages with ads and no actual answers. This will give you a well thought out, most of the time correct and helpful answer to any sort of random, embarrassing, intricate, unique question that you ask. Like, you can see all the random types of things that I ask it, but it really is helpful and saves time on Googling and going down random YouTube rabbit holes to try and get the answer for things. You can see just random camera settings, product recommendations, scuba diving in Hawaii, asking about cat bite training tips because my kitten keeps biting me all the time. So that's been a whole thing. And it's also really good for recipes. I like to cook a lot and sometimes don't always have all the ingredients I need. So I'll ask it to help me make a certain dish, but I'll say like I only have these things and it'll adjust the recipe for me. And most of the time, the dishes come out pretty good. They taste fine. Like, I was a little worried at first that it was just gonna kind of make up some stuff and it would taste bad, but no, the ChatGPT can cook. I've also started using Grok 3, which I think recently came out, and it also seems very promising and potential strong competitor to ChatGPT. I just asked it some default prompt about Bitcoin, but it's got some cool features. Like, if I ask it something like, what is the optimal morning, or let's say optimal night routine for maximizing sleep quality, and we do deep search option, it does like this deep web search, I think, and it's pretty cool. You can like click into here and read its mind. So it's kind of going through all these different things, exploring sleep routines. And so you can kind of read its mind and watch what it is going through to give you the answer. And it'll take its time when you do this deep search. So this is more if you're like really trying to research something in depth, but the answers have been quite good. And of course, if you turn off the deep search mode, it's way faster, just like ChatGPT is. But yeah, I'll have to play around with this more, and potentially it could replace ChatGPT for me, but really enjoyed using it so far. Next up, we've got the Anki app. This is what I use for studying Japanese, although honestly lately I've kind of been slacking. I told myself I was going to study it regularly starting this year, and I just have not made it a priority. But when I do, I use Anki for learning vocabulary. It's kind of the classic language learning flashcard app. But yeah, I think I need to seriously start prioritizing this habit because it's just kind of been on the back burner. I only get motivated to study and learn Japanese when I'm either in Japan or about to travel or consuming some sort of Japanese content. So yeah, I've just been lazy with this, to be honest. All right, and for journaling, I really like using the Day One app. It just works really well, syncs nicely between devices, and it's got some great features, templates and stuff. I've done quite a few journal entries in here over the months and years. Can't really show you what's in them specifically because there's a lot of personal stuff, but been using this a lot over the past couple years. And I also like to use the Kindle app quite a bit on my iPad, and I'll pair it with Audible. So if you don't know already, if you have the audiobook, like for this book that I've been reading, which is quite good, I'll probably make a video about it. You can play the audiobook, and I've got the volume down, but you can see it's kind of highlighting the part of the audiobook that it's reading, and it syncs to the page. So you can kind of read along with the audiobook. If you wanted to listen to just the audiobook for a period of time, you can come back later, sync it to the actual written word, or you can do both at the same time, which I like because it feels like I'm getting kind of double input and retain the information a little better. Now, if I'm reading a book that's more educational and I want to take notes on it, I'll often go into split screen mode here, open up Apple Notes or something, and go crazy with my keyboard, taking notes, going back and forth between the two, and it works really nicely on the iPad since it is a pretty big screen. I also have Spotify, of course. On my iPad, if I'm using it, it's usually to listen to some sort of lo-fi beats, focus music, or a podcast, or sometimes audiobooks, because Spotify now has lots of great audiobooks as well. So we'll occasionally use Spotify. Another app that I feel like most people don't know about too much is Apple Freeform. It's kind of like this new whiteboard app that Apple made, and it's similar to something like Miro or Milanote, but completely free and syncs between Apple devices. And this works great with the Apple Pencil and Paperlike, but I'll use this a lot for anything that needs more visual planning. So if I'm doing a vlog or some kind of thumbnail and I need to sketch it out or kind of do some sort of mind map visualization of my plans or anything like that, I'll use Freeform. I recently moved into a new apartment and I was trying to figure out the layout of where things should go. So I kind of did some measurements and created a little messy mock-up design here of where to put the couch and the desk and how big of a rug and things. And it's really useful for stuff like that. Kind of bare bones at the moment. I imagine they'll start to add more features like embedded whiteboards and things like that would be really nice. But at the moment, it is still a very solid app and again, completely free. All right, next up we have Lightroom, and this is my go-to app for editing photos, thumbnails, pictures for social media, that type of thing. And it's just probably the industry standard for editing photos, and the iPad app works great. It's got all the same features as the desktop, but you have the nice mobility of the iPad and a little bit bigger screen than the iPhone. So definitely use this a lot for any sort of picture related things. Now that I got this new camera, I think I'm going to start trying to take more serious photography and stuff, especially when I go traveling and things. And so I will be editing all those sort of photos in Lightroom. Next up, we have Copilot, and this is the app that I use to manage a lot of my finances. If you watch the most recent video on my channel, how I manage my money every month or something, this is a big part of my process. And here's just a little look at the app in their demo mode. These aren't my actual financial numbers, but it's a great clean aesthetic app for tracking all your expenses and income. You can basically add all your different financial accounts. It'll import all the transactions and categorize them, track your spending, budgets, net worth, all that type of stuff. But if you're interested in more personal finance stuff, I would check out that video I posted last week where I go more in depth into my whole money management system. But this app works great on the iPad, so I'll often use it to do my monthly finance review. All right, so I know there might not have been too many surprises or unique, special, unknown apps on this list, and that's really just because I think the fundamental, mostly free apps are all you really need to be productive or organized or make the most of your iPad. You don't need to go out and pay $20 a month on all these app subscriptions. Most stuff you can find honestly built in directly to the iPad. What really matters for improving your quality of life is how you use the apps and what you use them for and how you spend your time and other things that I talk about on this channel. If you do any sort of handwriting stuff, I would definitely check out Paperlike as well. It genuinely makes it so much more satisfying to write by hand on the iPad, which just unlocks a whole another realm of possibilities. But yeah, thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next video.